and loaded. Truth on my blade, every line's exploded. You swing your words, I counter with precision. Battle of reason, this is my mission. Raise your fist, let them know. No, raise your voice, let it blow. Woo! We clash our swords of reason.
Welcome everybody to Swords of Reason right here on the SpeakeaZy show, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and this is where logic meets passion. Today's debate prompt: who is more politically violent, the left or the right? And today's debaters, for one side, we have Fredo Fonzarelli, who's known for his hot topic discussions, political debating, and gaming streams with a channel right here on YouTube you can find in the description. And for the other side, we have the First Amender, known for political and hot topic discussions, and his Debate a Woke Liberal call-in show. Also with a YouTube channel right here on YouTube. So you can go and find that in the description as well. So debaters, you already know the rules. And we're going to start with First Amender. And I think you said you had a presentation if you want to present it whenever.
I do.
Yeah, so go ahead and present it.
Okay, so this is who is more politically violent, the left or the right? This is a debate with First Amender from YouTube. You can find me at youtube.com/@FirstAmender. What is violence, or define domestic violence extremism? The FBI and Department of Homeland Security define domestic violent extremism as threats involving actual violence. They do not investigate people in the United States for constitutionally protected speech, activism, or ideological beliefs. Domestic violence extremism is defined by the FBI and Department of Homeland Security as violence or credible threats of violence intended to influence government policy or intimidate civilians for political or ideological purposes. This general framing, which includes a diverse activities under a single category, guides investigations and prosecutions. The DOJ quietly had removed some studies regarding this particular topic. You could see right here on Yahoo News, DOJ deletes its own study from a website showing far more domestic terrorism is committed by the far-right extremists. And then again, you could see in The Guardian, the U.S. Department of removes study finding far-right extremists commit far more violence. Report finding right-wing extremists have killed more Americans than other domestic terrorist groups vanished from the DOJ website. And then this is the Princeton University GPIA, in case that anybody thinks that I'm trying to be biased here, the politics of deletion in the Trump era. In September 2025, 2 days after the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, the United States Department of Justice quietly removed the 2024 National Institute of Justice study from its official website. So what did the NIJ study say? It's actually a good thing that I have it. What NIJ research tells us about domestic terrorism: militant, nationalistic, white supremacist, and violent extremism has increased in the United States. In fact, the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremism. Since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists, including 227 events that took more than 520 lives. In this same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated attacks that took 78 lives. A recent threat assessment by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security concluded that domestic violent extremists are an acute threat and highlighted a probability that COVID-19 pandemic-related stressors, long-standing ideological grievances related to immigration, and narratives surrounding electoral fraud will continue to serve as a justification for violent actions. There's additional evidence here where you have from the prosecution project showing might is right, United States criminal cases involving political violence by ideology. You could see right here that shaded in black is the left. On the right, you have in red Islamist, in dark gray, and in light gray is other. Side note, the Prosecution Project is a research initiative led by Michael Lodenthal, the University of Cincinnati, that tracks and analyzes felony criminal cases involving illegal political violence, terrorism, and extremism in the United States since 1990. They use open source intelligence and understand patterns of persecution, ideology, and offender characteristics for research and policy makers. It is a credible and unbiased source. But isn't left-wing violence on the left increasing? Yes, but also this. Left-wing terrorist attacks are on the rise. You can see here from 1994 to 2005, or 2025, but in reality, it does not compare, comparatively speaking. However, we have an interesting data source right here. Look, it's lower for 2025. By the way, CSIS data is a bipartisan think tank with scholars that represent varying points of view across the political spectrum. CSIS was founded in 1962 as an affiliate of Georgetown University. This center conducts policy studies and strategic analysis of political, economic, and security issues throughout the world, with issues focusing around international relations, trade, technology, finance, and energy and geostrategy. The potential bias on the right. You could see here for the left-wing versus right-wing terrorist attacks and plots in the United States, 1994 to 2005. Now, or 2025. You could see right here, 2025, a stunning, sharp decline in the level of violence, specifically among the right. Though the number of left-wing terrorist attacks and plots is experiencing a rise, the effectiveness of perpetrators typically remains limited. Although left-wing perpetrators often carry out their plans, they rarely do so with deadly effect. Two metrics illustrate this dynamic. First, a large share of left-wing plots succeed in becoming actual attacks. In 2025, 5 left-wing incidents that occurred before July 4th, 4 were attacks that carried out, and only 1 was a disrupted plot. This continues as a long-standing pattern. The number of left-wing attacks carried out is typically much greater than the number of plots disrupted. This trend is mirrored in right-wing and ethno-nationalist incidents and is likely influenced by bias in data collection. That is, incomplete public information means disrupted plots are likely undercounted. Ask yourself this logically. Do you believe that right-wing violence has declined lower in the past 31 years, or that the Trump administration is going out of its way to not count instances of right-wing violent extremism, considering that they actively went out of their way to hide data from verified sources? What is the consensus on this? Consensus.app, an AI tool that specifically combs scientific papers and scientific papers only to derive consensus based on multitudes of studies, have found the following, asking the question: who is more violent, the left or the right, in terms of politically motivated violence? Right-wing extremists are generally more likely to engage in politically motivated violence than left-wing extremists, though both sides can exhibit violence under certain conditions. Are right-wing violent extremists more violent than left-wing extremists in terms of politically motivated violence? This requires at least 5 papers to directly answer that question. Comparative findings and empirical data show that large-scale analysis show that left-wing extremists are less likely to use violence compared to right-wing Islamist extremists. In the United States, right-wing and Islamist extremists commit more violent acts, while globally, Islamist extremists are the deadliest, but right-wing violence is more frequent and severe than left-wing violence. Additional studies, right-wing populists and those that with a right-wing authoritarian attitudes are more likely to justify or support political violence than left-wing populists, though radicalization can occur on both sides. Meta-analyses show that right-wing ideological attitudes are consistently associated with higher aggressive tendencies, both in attitudes and behaviors across multiple contexts. And in a contextual variation, in some highly polarized or crisis-ridden societies, both far-left and far-right violence can escalate, often in response to each other, but right-wing violence remains more prevalent in most Western contexts. And here you could observe the table of patterns of politically motivated violence, where right-wing ideology has a higher likelihood of violence in comparison to left-wing. Conclusion. Research consistently finds that right-wing extremists are more likely to engage in politically motivated violence than left-wing extremists, especially in the United States and Western Europe. However, both sides can become violent under certain conditions, and the context, such as polarization or repression, can influence the prevalence of targets of violence. The data is clear. While many point out to individual case scenarios when it comes to understanding political violence, such as Charlie Kirk, the data simply does not support the notion that the left causes more violence than the right, as per Donald Trump's baseless claims. In fact, it is quite the opposite. When taken the largest forms of data sets, that indeed the right causes more violence at an empirical level. Thank you very much, and you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, First Amender on YouTube.
All right. Thank you for that opening statement. And with that, we're going to hand over the mic to Fredo Fonzarelli. And Fredo, whenever you're ready, I will start the timer up with your voice. And thank you both for being here.
All right, thank you for having me speak easy, and thank you, First Amender, for taking up the contention. It's going to be short and sweet. The left is inherently violent and has shown so ever since we've coined the term left and right in the French Revolution. The left leaving 17,000 officially dead by the guillotine and another 10 to 20K dead in prison or without trial. Take it to the 20th century. Left versus right wing violence is not even a contest. Communism left about let me see, 60 to 148 million deaths. Some say up to 148 million, including the Stalin era, leaving 62 million dead. The Mao era, leaving 77 million dead. And Khmer Rouge with 2 million, and other like North Korean and Vietnam violence. And they like to point to Nazi Germany and Mussolini and other fascist-aligned dictators in Japan at the region, which only account for about 20 to 40 million. So that's about a 6 times increase in violence there all through the 20th century. And they continue to show their inherent bias for violence in the present day, with such showings as the multiple attempts on a president life and the assassination on one of the most prominent voices on the right, Charlie Kirk, especially with the ICE protests. And they like to point to January 6th, but I like to point to Chaz Chop, where more people actually died as a result of violence, not to mention multiple SA cases in the area. And it was an actual attempt to take an autonomous piece of the city. And as for your studies are inherently biased. They like to mark things as Kenosha shooting as a right-wing activity, spray painting Nazi symbols on a Catholic church as right-wing activity. But whenever somebody shouts and shoots somebody in the middle of the street for explicitly being a Trump supporter, that is not right-wing activity. So I put into question a lot of his sources. I'm sure they're from CISIS, ADL, and those of the like. All of those have been shown to be inherently biased, and their numbers are fudged and thus irrelevant. The left has showed more violence throughout the centuries and continues to show more violence today. Plain in our face, BLM riots left at least 36 dead, with $2 billion in taxes. And they even had to move. Move his trial because of it. He couldn't be charged in the city. So, with that, I'd like to get into the rebuttals.
All right. Thank you for that opening statement. And with that, we'll get into the 5-minute uninterrupted rebuttals. So we'll hand the mic back to First Amender. Whenever you're ready, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Well, I heard his intro. It didn't really make any sense to me. For starters, bringing up what happened in what? I'm assuming that if you're referring to a French guillotine anywhere around the 1700s to the 1800s, I have no idea what that has anything to do with what is happening today. It just seems like kind of talking about something that nobody is arguing. It's as if I brought up, say, the problem with right-wingers today, and that I bring up the Crusades as a good example. It's really not relevant in today's atmosphere. I wouldn't imagine that people are going to be arguing in favor of the Crusades nowadays, or maybe there are, who knows. But regardless, it's beside the point. You are talking about communism having killed 60 to 80 million. Newsflash, there are no real communists in the United States. It's a completely defunct system. It's not something that's relevant. It's not something that I argue. Attributing communism to what? To left-wingers is just completely insane. They had largely been eradicated out of United States society. I don't even think that you could even adequately define what communism is, being the classless, moneyless, stateless society. I don't even argue this, so it's once again completely irrelevant. As for Chaz or Chop or not, so I argue for contemporary democratic positions, which is going to be like a progressivist lens from a Netherlands position, or something along the lines of a more Netherlands position, which basically just means that I argue in favor of more progressive policies. I'm perfectly okay with there being capitalism. I still consider myself to be on the left, comparatively speaking to most people that are in the United States, because I do argue for progressive policies. So I have no idea what Chaz and Chop means. It's also irrelevant to the statistics, considering the fact that it's already counted in the statistics. And even if you count for Chaz and Chop and BLM and all that stuff, it is also referenced. Now, the next thing that I find very interesting is that it doesn't matter what studies I present. The studies, no matter what, are going to be inherently biased, which means by your very metric, you now effectively have zero falsifiability. Let me ask you this. What would be good evidence to show something that is unbiased? Because I provided a multitude of sources, and most academic sources are agreeing with me. In fact, I would say virtually all academic sources are in my favor here, in that the right causes more violence. Hell, even the Department of Justice was able to find that information and then quietly shut down. But I mean, I guess if it goes against your worldview, it's got to be biased. Am I right? And as for BLM riots, that's mostly property damage. Even if you account for the violence that was caused during BLM, it is still less than that of right-wing violence. And that would be my rebuttal to all of everything you've said.
All right. Thank you for that rebuttal. And with that, we're going to hand the mic back over to you, Fredo, for your 5-minute uninterrupted rebuttal. And whenever you're ready, I'll start the timer up with your voice. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry about that. So when we're talking about the late 1700s, the point to be bringing that up is to show the violent history of the left and how it always has been violence all the way up through the communist state. Seize the means of production. Does that not sound like violence to you? And so also, I reject wholly the studies that talk about right-wing violence and include Islam as right-wing violence, because that is a religious ideology and not an inherently right-wing ideology. Also, no communists in the United States. There's plenty of people advocating far and wide for communism. The point in bringing up communists is because that's where being left and socialistic minded inevitably leads. Also, it doesn't matter what you argue. The left is the left, no matter how you identify it, or just because you argue for a specific progressive ideology, that doesn't mean that other people that are progressive are not on the left and they don't commit violence. And the particular incidents may be referenced, but they're not cataloged right. And the Crusades were justified. And all your sources align with you. And you say they're not biased, but even Michael Lowenthal, who's supposedly extremely unbiased, is a professor of sociology and social justice at Miami. Like, I'm sure he's unbiased, brother, but we can get into the open discussion.
All right. Thank you for that rebuttal. And with that, we're going to move it over to the open hour discussion for back and forth. And whoever wants to start up this open floor, I'll start the timer with your voice. And again, thank you both for being here tonight.
So, Fredo, if there was, for example, if there were overwhelming amount of studies saying that the left overwhelmingly causes more violent crime, then we wouldn't even be having this discussion. We would just be agreeing with one another, right? Because I look at things from an empirical basis, right? So it's not because something is on the left or on the right. I just look at what the facts show, and then I go in the realm of the facts. So
in a perfect world, we could have all these studies and have proper methodology.
Hey, hold on.
All right, you can filibuster all day. Get to the point.
If I'm showing you relevant statistics from multiple sources that shows that that the right does cause more violence, what exactly would good evidence that would prove you wrong look like? What does that look like to you?
Evidence that actually uses proper methodology and doesn't include Islam as a major point of its right-wing ideology whenever it's clearly religiously bent and not politically bent.
So, Fredo, are you aware that most of the studies that I've referenced, in fact, I would venture to say every single study that I referenced had a clear separation of Islamic extremism and right-wing violence from an American perspective?
That's fine, but
did you look at those charts?
Yes, I looked at the charts, but I haven't had time to go through the whole study, the methodology, how they're categorizing certain things. Like, is Luigi Mangione in the study? We can go time and time again. Is the but how is it categorized?
Well, there's thousands of data points, right? Yes, those are also categorized. Right?
Is it categorized as left-wing terrorism?
Yes,
it is. The Luigi Mangione is. What about the trans shooter in Tennessee?
Yes.
Left-wing terrorism. And in which study is that?
There were multitude of studies that showed this. You're just talking about individual data points. I'm talking about data points in the thousands of people. When you look at the thousands of people that commit violence in the United States, it is overwhelmingly the right that is causing that. That is empirically verifiable. In fact, the Department of Justice showed exactly what every university showed, and the Trump administration openly tried to hide that. They just quietly removed it.
Thousands of people
every year. It's monitored.
And from right-wing violence.
From right, yes, that's correct. From right-wing violence.
For political ideologies.
Yes.
Okay, and when was the last time one of these events happened?
What? We're talking about thousands of data points.
A major right-wing event for a political ideology happened.
You meta-analysis
every year it happens. Okay, thousands. You got thousands to choose from, so give me one.
There were those two politicians that died recently. They were Democrats that just died. They ended up dying to some right-wing extremists. You could look at Nancy Pelosi, who had her husband head caved in with a hammer. There's tons of instances of right-wing violence.
He was fucking Canadian.
He was a liberal. He went after Nancy Pelosi, and it was a liberal. Really?
Yes, he was a liberal. He was a gay
dude. You are brain rotted, bro. Can I just start off by saying, right?
All right.
Even if I provided you full studies with full evidence, right? The problem is that you don't actually have any falsifiability. You're sitting there saying, well, every single study that disagrees with your internal worldview must be false and biased and owned by liberals, and the universities just want to frame right-wingers.
Whenever you categorize things like Kyle Rittenhouse as right-wing violence, as right-wing extremism, but
that wasn't. I'm not even sure if that was even included, and I wouldn't even consider. I wouldn't even consider Kyle Rittenhouse.
You don't even
stop. That's a single data point. I'm not even considering Kyle Rittenhouse to be. I'm not even considering Kyle Rittenhouse to be a right-wing violent extremist.
You're not. But the studies that you referenced are.
What? I don't even know if that's the case. This is referencing thousands of data points, thousands of individual data points.
And you didn't look up to any of the studies?
Yes, I did.
What
the hell do you think that PowerPoint was? Was that just me just coughing out my ass? Or do you think that I actually pulled this up and looked up what it says?
I'm trying to show you a problem in the methodology of your study. You understand? So categorize.
Yeah. As opposed to you, who's bringing up individual data points, as opposed to the thousands of data points readily available for anybody to look at, empirically showing that the right causes more violence.
I'm showing you a single example, but there's even more examples to where they would classify Kyle Rittenhouse.
Do you understand how bringing up a single example to thousands of data points is completely irrelevant?
There's even more and more examples. I've presented 2 or 3, several, even all the way up to
this,
here. Right? There's a clear problem with your methodology.
Let's try this. Let's say, for example, that I have a study that says, hey, on this road, we have 100,000 cars that get flat tires. And then you go, well, but my car went down that road and I never had the flat tire. Do you understand how stupid that is? Do you understand how stupid that sounds?
Do you understand how stupid 1,000 deaths to right-wing political ideologies in America sounds?
Yeah, it happens every year.
When was the last event?
What? It happens every year. I don't have to bring up a single event. There's multiple instances
where this happens. You've had a whole 2025 that you can choose from, brother.
Well, to be fair, right? In 2025 , and you'll notice in the last chart that I posted that there was a sudden
on the chart,
sharp
but when was the last
decline, a sudden sharp drop in quote unquote political violence as soon as the Donald Trump administration. I think personally, in my opinion, I think that the Trump administration is actively going out of their way to not count instances of right-wing political violence to make the right look good. That would make sense in the fact that in the 31 past years of counting political violence among the right, that all of a sudden in 2025 it's the lowest in recorded history. It's total nonsense. You are hook, line, and sinker into total propaganda, and you look at actual verifiable sources such as any university. It doesn't even have to be a left-wing university. It could be a right-wing university. It still shows that the right cause more violence. That's true.
Can you give me one instance?
I don't need to give you one instance.
You tried to give
Get that through your thick head.
Wrong.
Okay. I'm saying if I show you,
we can all think.
Hold on. If I show you, right? If I show you a road, again, talking about like the flat tire thing on the road.
What about
hey,
hold up. Let's keep it one. Let's keep it one at a time. Fredo, finish what you were saying, and then give it back to Amanda.
I was just saying, I can give you several instances, like the president being shot at twice, Charlie Kirk being murdered in front of everybody in America, that leftist dude who accidentally killed 2 ICE detainees. You understand? It goes on and on and on. The list doesn't stop. You can't even name a single instance.
If I show you a road, and I did name multiple, but regardless,
you're wrong on both accounts.
But regardless, just to point this out, right? I'm sitting here showing you, let's say if I have that road where there's a lot of flat tires on that road, and then I say, hey, take a look at this study. It shows that there's 100,000 cars that got flat tires. And then you say, name one car that got a flat tire. I did. It's 100,000 cars. The studies show 100,000 cars. Yeah, but what is exactly the name of one of these quote unquote people that got a flat tire? It's completely idiotic. It actually is totally devoid of any kind of empirical thinking. You're just looking for individual instances when I'm bringing up thousands of cases and multiple studies that prove you wrong.
You know, it's really void of empirical thinking whenever I'm bringing you multiple examples of how these methodology in these cases are wrong. I've read the studies that you prevented.
What study did you read? I'd be surprised if you could read it all.
I bet, huh? I just look like this motherfucker. So I read the CISIS study, the ADL study.
ADL study? I didn't reference the ADL.
Yeah, well,
you read all the studies, did you? Did you read the studies that I referenced?
You referenced.
Did you happen to read that paper from the Department of Justice that was quietly removed under the Trump administration for no reason whatsoever?
Like I said,
why would they do that? Why do you think the Trump administration would quietly remove the Department of Justice paper? Why do you think? Why don't we let's go ahead and rub 2 and 2 brain cells together and try to figure out why?
All right, guys, come on. We gotta do this one at a time here. One at a time. Go, Amanda, finish what you were saying there, and then
once again, the studies already separated Islamic extremism from right-wing ideology in the United States. Multiple studies did that, including the Department of Justice study. I didn't even reference the ADL. I don't know why you're talking about the ADL. Who cares about the ADL? I, again, can provide just about any source, be it a meta-analysis. It could be some empirical source from some random university. It could be a Department of Criminology in the Department of Justice. No matter what you do, the data is against you here. That's why it is so difficult for you to come up with an actual point. You have to derive yourself into individual situations and say, see, you can't name a single point. That actually isn't, that's a total non sequitur. That has absolutely nothing to do with the relevant statistics. And as soon as I bring up relevant statistics, you say, well, that's probably a biased source because it disagrees with my worldview. It's totally devoid of any thought.
Not at all. If it agreed with my worldview and it categorized things correctly, like I said, I went through some of these studies, some studies about political violence, and most of them that are headed by the same people all use the same methodology.
Who's the same people? Who the fuck are you talking about?
Kai, what's his name from the
Is a meta-analysis a part of that?
No, it's
how many people are involved in a meta-analysis, do you think?
I don't know.
A lot, don't you think?
The people that are.
Do you think like PhDs in criminology is a PhD in criminology? Is that a viable? Is that a valid source?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So a person who sits there and spends their entire life studying these topics, that is a viable source.
Absolutely. Yes.
Great. So then my sources are valid. So my sources is valid. You just admitted
you don't understand.
That my source is valid.
If his sources are coming from inherently corrupt pieces of data, which are leaving out and categorizing things wrong, then how are we going to trust?
As opposed to now, which is probably correct. Now that the Department of Justice isn't even investigating right-wing violence anymore, thanks to the Trump administration and their Department of Justice, including the NIJ, firing people who point out relevant statistics and then bringing in people that specifically agree with them. It's amazing. It's actually incredible. You are hook, line, and sinker in the idiot train.
I would like you to bring up the bill that says he allowed anything of the sort. And also, like I was saying,
that's all he does. Trump does nothing but that. Why would he remove relevant studies from the NIJ? Why is that? Why does that happen?
Bro, we watched cities burn, and none of that was.
Wow, cool! Look at that, another individual data point with no study whatsoever. Amazing.
An individual.
Why don't you provide me any study? Provide me any study. I have multiple studies that argue my position. Where do you get your information? If it is not just simply like your own personal anecdote or Twitter or YouTube, like, oh, Charlie Kirk died, when I'm talking about thousands of people.
Go to yougov.net. Right after Charlie Kirk died, you'll see
yougov.net
or yougov.us.
yougov.us?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right, so let's go to yougov.us. Okay, that's a typo. That is not the DNS probe Finnish NX domain. So I guess we can't go there. Where do I go, buddy?
Back. Hold on. Yeah. It shows whenever asked, do you think if it's ever justified for citizens to resort to violence in order to achieve a political goals? Democrats says yes, violence can sometimes be justified at 14% to Republicans, 6%.
Are you aware that is different? That is a different question to who is more politically violent, the left or right. Empirically speaking, it's the right. It's not even close. Pick your source. It is true across every spectrum. This is observational for decades.
Whenever the left wing people won't even keep their people in jail, let them out 11 times, won't even charge them.
Do you have a source?
The no cash bail is your source, brother.
Do you have a source?
The no cash bail is your source. All of the media sweeping for every. Your source is no cash bail. Your source is the media sweeping for all these criminals and everything that. It's right.
I don't think you understand what you're up against here. We're gonna try one more time.
I'm up against your data. I'm up against your data.
Yes, you're going up against data that is you're just empirically wrong about. Here, I'll show you. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm not doing this to like, I don't know, like make fun of you or whatever. What I'm interested in is what are the facts of the matter? If the data said that the left causes the violence. Are you able to share my screen, SpeakeaZy, if you could?
I just want you to show me this violence that the right is causing.
Okay, so this is 20 separate sources. 20 separate sources. Okay, there's 20 papers. Right-wing extremists are generally more likely to engage in politically motivated violence than left-wing extremists, though both sides can exhibit violence under certain conditions. So
yes,
here,
show me what is considered right-wing violence.
I mean, which one do you want? I mean, we can look at a comparison of political violence by left-wing, right-wing, and violent extremists, ideologically motivated mass shootings, a crime script analysis of far right, far left. We can go over this stuff. Do you want to go over it?
We can. I want you to show me exactly what is considered. I want you to show me exactly what is considered right-wing violence.
A comparison of political violence. Oh, you want that? Okay.
That was Islamist. I want to know exactly what's considered.
Nope, that is not what this says.
That's what that last study said. Yeah, it was.
So although political violence has been perpetrated on behalf of a wide range of political ideologies, it is unclear as to whether there are systematic differences between ideologies in the use of violence to pursue political cause. Prior research on this topic is scarce and mostly restricted to self-reported measures of less extreme forms of political aggression. Moreover, it is generally focused on respondents in Western countries that have been limited to either comparisons of supporters of left-wing and right-wing causes and examists of only Islamist extremism. In this research, we address the gaps comparing the use of political violence by left-wing, right-wing, and Islamic extremists in the United States worldwide using two unique data sets that cover real-world examples of politically motivated violent behaviors. Across both data sets, we find that radical acts perpetrated by individuals associated with left-wing causes are less likely to be violent. In the United States, we found no difference between the level of violence perpetrated by right-wing and Islamist extremists. However, differences in violence emerged on the global level, with Islamist extremists more likely than right-wing extremists to engage in more violent acts.
Okay.
Do you want to go over the individual data points?
No. Yeah, we will in a second. But first off, they don't even differentiate between politically motivated, like if it's motivated to present a political change, or if it's from a person of that political event. Because if you're doing that, then
I don't think that's relevant to my. I don't think that's relevant.
Yes,
at all.
that's exactly relevant.
And the reason why it's not relevant.
No. I'm going to tell you why it is relevant, because they missed a huge data point, which is black men.
Which one is more violent, the left or the right?
Are left leaning, who commit most of the violent crime in the country.
Okay, this is irrelevant. Is this a relevant?
Why would they live that? Why would that?
Is this a relevant source?
Why would they leave that?
Is the source that I referenced relevant? Is the source that I referenced relevant?
Why would they? They just said
that's a yes or no question. I don't need a why. Why is not a yes or no. Is this source a relevant source?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because they left out this huge chunk of evidence. They said they don't differentiate ideology from a person of that ideological bent. So if you're a Democrat, you're more likely to commit violent crime, because if black people are more likely to vote Democrat, and they commit most of the crime in the country, bro.
Was that a sentence? What the hell was that?
Yeah.
We didn't even go over the relevant statistics.
You didn't hear anything I just said?
It didn't make any sense. It didn't sound like a sentence that makes any sense to me. So you're telling me, okay, I just want to be clear, right?
Yes. So
you're saying that black people vote Democrat, and because black people commit most of the violence, that means the left causes most of the violence? Is that your argument?
Yes.
What about right-wing Christo-fascists? Is that part of it? What about ethno-nazists? What about people that believe that the election was stolen? Are you aware of these people?
When is the last time they've committed violence? Are you going to quote Jan?
They commit it by the thousands. They do it all the freaking time. It's so common in the United States that it's not even worthy of even mentioning. It doesn't even get put on the news anymore because of how common it is.
You want to talk about man, bro. You want to talk about ICE?
Yeah,
bro?
You know what this is? This is your worldview crashing out around you. This is why you can't actually say anything, because the data is against you here. And it doesn't matter what source that you're coming from. Dude, your response to my source was, well, black people commit crime and black people like Democrat. All you did was just argue racism and have no source to back that up. You just argued racism.
Go to FBI.gov. Like, they have
provide something. And also,
FBI.gov.
politically motivated violence has nothing to do with people robbing things or hurting one another because of poor
They
socioeconomic
explicitly
conditions.
said that they included
It has to
both.
be motivated,
included-
right? They have a
No, they said it
desire
wasn't.
to
They
commit
said they did
violence
not separate.
because of their
They did not
ideology.
separate
All right,
motivated
real
person from
quick,
the person who believes in
guys.
a certain-
Just because we've been going about 21 minutes almost on like the sources and stuff here, and I was just thinking maybe before getting into the who is more violent, one of the things I think would be good if we kind of just defined what is the political violent. Like, is it institutional coercion? Is it political intimidation, property destruction? Like, what all counts as political violence? Maybe if you guys can come to an agreement here, and then we can get into which side is worse on these.
I mean, I would say political violence is you are acting violence with a political motivation. I'm sorry, being black and then, I don't know, robbing a store or something, I wouldn't consider that political violence, unless if you want to think the death of Charlie Kirk equivocal to that. Would you say that that's equivocal?
I thought we were just agreeing on a definition, but that study was including not just political violence enacted to enforce a political ideology, but violence enacted by people who support a political ideology.
Okay, so
yeah, we can agree to the physical force in order to enact political change.
All right. So here, I'll try to share my screen one more time. Are you able to show my screen one more time? So this right here is showing abstract. The study using descriptive analysis to examine far right, far left, and jihadist-inspired ideologically motivated mass shooters, the IMMS in the U.S. 1970 to 2019. This work provides a comparison of incidence rates and shooter backgrounds, as well as the preparation, execution, and conclusion of attacks. When comparing the three IMMS types, findings indicate far right incidents were more
You're
common.
still talking about
far left
Islam,
shooters were
dude.
largely black nationalists and jihadist-inspired shooters that had more college graduates, employed married parents during initial preparation. IMMS often leaked violent intentions and had facilitating conditions, including criminal, domestic violence, and military histories. Jihadist-inspired shooters had more planning. Far-left shooters often accessed guns illegally. During attack executions, IMMS incidents often occurred in South and involved in open space or unrestricted access locations. Jihadist-inspired shooters targeted government locations more often, while far-left incidents often occurred outside of the law enforcement scene. What?
Are you just going to read this whole time?
Well, I'm. The problem is that I can provide study after study after study that shows that you're wrong on this, that you don't know what you're talking about.
That says that
right?
I'm wrong. It doesn't show that I'm
speaking,
wrong.
No, but you are. You are wrong on this in the fact that the right causes more violence than the left. We know that to be the case.
And why can't you
That
name
is the
me?
fact.
Why can't you name me a single right-wing incident?
I don't need to. I could just look at data points and then
You can just
based
look at
off
the
of the
studies,
entire aggregate
and then
of
it just
information. And by the way, I
automatically
did, right? I did talk about Nancy Pelosi as well as the two Democrats that died as a result of the
Neither one of the perpetrators of either one of those situations were right-wing.
those were right wingers. Yes, there were.
Neither one,
Nancy
no.
Pelosi for sure was
Nancy
a right
Pelosi
winger.
was not a
We can go
right-wing. He
over
was from
those two
Canada.
Democrats and how that they were politically motivated to kill them as well.
He said that Tim Walz sent him.
Also, FYI, bringing up an individual data point is completely irrelevant
That's all you can go back to.
the overarching mountain of data you're arguing against.
You can literally name not one case of right-wing extreme ideology in the last year. Bro.
I just did, and it also
Neither
doesn't
one
matter.
of those were right-wing. Yes,
Your
it does.
only
Absolutely
argument
does
was
matter.
you can't name one. Why can't you name one car that suddenly
Because
lost
we
a
can-
tire?
we can-
Even though we can bring up relevant
Because we can name-
statistics
we can-
that
we can name
shows
time after time
empirically
after
that
time.
to be the case.
Donald Trump twice, Charlie Kirk, Trans-Nashville shooter, Aaron Danielson.
There
What
wasn't
are you
even a
talking about? I can go
left-winger
off.
that shot
Go
Donald
off,
Trump.
go
A
off.
lot of these people are mentally unhinged, crazy people because Republicans got the brilliant idea to close down our freaking mental facilities.
They were left-wing twice.
What?
Yes. Yes.
That's not true. Where are you getting that? A lot of them were not even politically motivated. They just hated Trump. Also, none of this even matters. A lot of these people had genuine mental problems. And again, these are individual data points, not arguing the overarching data point on the basis of criminology. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just bringing up an individual data point.
Are we using racial violence as a metric?
Yeah, that's part of it. Sure.
So what about Irina Zarutska?
What? Oh, you're talking about the Ukrainian white girl that got killed by that black guy who was mentally unstable?
Said, "I got that white girl as soon as he did it."
Yeah, that's mental instability. When you have somebody that's mentally unstable, and because the Republicans thought it was a really smart idea to close down all of our mental institutions in the 80s and 90s, you have instances like that. That, however, is not politically motivated. The guy had schizophrenia and had a long stint of mental health problems.
Racial violence, he said, "Got that white girl" right afterwards.
How is that? Is that the left? I got that white girl. Could it not be a descriptive claim? Can I say that guy with the glasses? Am I being like, I don't know?
It's the left that tends to have a war on white people right now.
What? That has nothing to do with politically motivated violence. You're talking about a guy that had voices in his freaking head. He sat there and said to the court, I think that there was like an individual case where he was talking about how the demons freaking told him to. Like, come on, dude. You're talking about a guy who's got mental health problems and was just left out in the street because Republicans had no fucking answer to the mental health facilities and the closure in the 1980s. It was this idea that, we're just going to have this, we're going to have community outreach programs to instead of mental health facilities.
And now you got a bunch of fucking crazy people running around. Let them out again and again.
By the way, Irene, she was Ukrainian. Did you know that? You know who doesn't support Ukrainians? Republicans. If we actually did something about Ukraine and wanted to assist them in their victory, maybe Irene wouldn't fucking be in this country to begin with.
It wasn't for that
fucking idiots, dude. These freaking right-wingers are so fucking brain-rotted, dude.
As much as I love all this, the chat can't hear you guys when this is going. So Fredo, we'll give you the mic and then give it back to Amanda.
More so, it's the Democrat policies, no cash bail, letting everybody out time and time again. It was his 14th time out whenever he killed Irina Zarutska. And we can go, but that's not even the point. It's not just an isolated
mental health facilities.
Blah, blah, blah. It's not even an isolated incident.
I'm just letting you know it's Republicans that decided to close mental health facilities.
Let them just finish up.
Look at Luigi Mangione killing the United Healthcare CEO.
Now that's left-wing violence. I'll grant you that.
Yeah, but
there are still thousands of cases of right-wing extremism and violence in the United States.
I don't need to.
I got the data set, Philly.
You can't. That's the point.
I got data set. Listen, there's a roller coaster where I show a study that says 1,000 people died on this roller coaster in a year. And then you go, can you name one person that died in the roller coaster? That doesn't matter. I have the data. It doesn't matter. There are people that do criminology. You do not need to know a single name to understand that 1,000 people would have died in the roller coaster. What a fucking idiotic fucking argument. That's not even an argument. They're like, you can't even name one. It's only rhetoric. There is no data. You have no argument.
So let me just 1 second. Let me just try and let's try and do something here. Instead of going from but this study or this incident, let's talk about maybe the patterns of the left or the patterns of the right. What's the types of violence that we see consistently on each side, and under what conditions do these come? Let's get a little bit into that maybe. And
before we even knew the shooter who killed Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump was already foaming at the mouth saying that it was a left-wing extremist, despite the fact that this person was mentally unstable and genuinely needed mental health. Instead of them being in a probable mental institution, before we even knew the identity of them, Donald Trump was saying that it was a left-winger that killed Charlie Kirk. We didn't even know who the fuck the guy was. Donald Trump was foaming at the mouth. Republicans foaming at the mouth. Half the time I sit there and talk with Republicans, they want a fucking race war. You could go on Twitter to just confirm that. The mountains and mountains of people, they're like, oh, look how the whites are getting replaced. Oh my God, all these Jewish people, they're trying to stop us. Oh, these people hate our Christianity. What the fuck do you think this causes? What it causes is an intense amount of hatred, an intense amount of people that are willing to act on it. And that's what ends up happening when you have actual relevant criminology statistics. You do in fact see that there is far more right-wing violence. Also, right-wingers tend to argue in favor of wanting more violence, considering the fact that they're more fucking armed. We know this to be the case. Are right-wingers more armed, Fredo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then do you think that the probability of them committing more violent actions is higher then?
No, or you'd be able to name a case.
Ah, good argument. Look at you. Wow, man.
Well, anyways,
let's rub two brain cells together and realize how dumb that argument is.
So anyways, we're talking about patterns of the left and the right. So we get one.
I wish I could live in your brain. It's got to have lots of real estate, dude.
Killed in the street. And what happens? We get riots through the streets for months. Cities burned down. $2 billion in damage, at least 36 dead. You kill one of our own, we're having vigils in the streets. We're having vigils. We're praying.
Except, of course, we're under instances where they like killing people, right? What about that one instance of that? Well, there was that one boy who went to a parade and murdered hundreds of people with his fucking truck.
Yeah. And he was left wing.
That was left wing, was it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he was a literal fucking ethno-nationalist that also argued in favor of what was it? He was a what's the phrase for it? A sovereign citizen. A lot of these people tend to be very far right.
Left wing white haters. No,
that's not no. Sovereign citizens is
they're all about
right wing.
Liberty and my freedoms. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Right wing idiots that think that they understand the justice system who end up killing dozens of people with their car.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah, they're left wing.
All right, so there's an individual case scenario. I guess I disproved you. What the fuck is this argument? The thousands of data points and statistics disagree with you. No matter what source I bring up, it is overwhelmingly the right that causes the violence. You cannot make that problem go away and you saying, oh, I need an individual case to prove it. Even though I did. I already fucking did. Hey, idiot, I already did. Hey, idiot, I already did.
Both of them have been wrong.
Did you hear what I said, idiot?
He wasn't right wing. He was left wing.
What? Yeah, he was right wing.
No, he wasn't.
He's a I don't know what else to tell you, dude. I don't know. I mean, you just have to avoid reality in order to make this work. I feel bad for you.
You want on that, but
and no source will ever matter, right? Because any source that I will bring up to you, it must be a biased statistic, right? I love the covering. It's amazing. You're hiding under this fucking rock, and I'm telling you that you're hiding under a rock.
I'll even grant you that one case, but fucking
there was also the Nancy Pelosi case, as well as the two Democrats that died in I forget what state it was.
I don't know why you keep on saying that.
But those were both right-wing violent extremists.
One who came after the Hortman said that Tim Walz sent him, and the other one was a fucking hippie liberal from Canada, bro.
What?
Yes. He was a hippie
drugged out liberal. Which case are you talking about, for starters?
The Pelosi case.
What? That was a right-wing extremist.
No, he was not.
It was.
Paul Pelosi. He was a hippie liberal dude from Canada. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So there were plots that included conspiring to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in 2020. That was a targeted attack by right-wingers, right?
I don't believe so. I don't remember that case, so.
Okay. Do you think that the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, are they violent?
Yeah.
Okay. Are those right-wingers?
Yeah.
Okay, great. What about the Buffalo supermarket shooting? Peyton Grendel. He was a white supremacist who targeted the supermarket in a predominantly black neighborhood, killing 10 people and wounding 3 others because they were black. Is that a right-winger?
Absolutely. What about
Okay.
Antifa?
Now,
Are
again,
they
this is
right-wingers?
completely, now,
Or are
once
they
again, right,
left-wingers?
bringing up individual case
Are
scenarios is
Antifa
completely
left-wingers?
idiotic, by the way. It's a total waste of time. It is a non
No, it's not,
sequitur to the
because
actual argument. The data shows
those entities.
overwhelmingly
What
the
about
right causes the violence. That is empirically verified. You have not provided a single source or statistic to back up your point. Provide me a single authoritative source that says the left is more violent. Go.
this poll that says 14% of Democrats say that violence can be justified?
Where is it? Link it. Let's share it for the
Yeah.
class, shall we?
I got you, buddy. Don't you worry about it. I gotta do it on this computer.
Oh,
Did we
I
lose
think
him?
he disconnected.
I asked him to provide a
He
source
must
and he
have
leaves.
exited by accident. Yeah, he'll come back.
Okay.
There he is. There he is. What I was gonna ask here is like, is it that extremists? Maybe this question for each side will help us get to get to the patterns here. Like, do the extremists at the both edges drive all the violence while the moderates are disowning it on both sides, or is it?
Yeah, I would. I
something
mean, to be
else?
fair, right? In terms of like the overall total violence, like in terms of like the amount of people dead, it's relatively low. Is it higher than in most other Western developed nations? Yes. Does the rhetoric cause there to be more violent extremists? Yes. It turns out when you have millions of people listening to things like Fox News or people that are far worse, who say that whites are replacing us, or whites are getting replaced, or that the Jews control the media, or that Christianity is under attack, or that they're coming for your freedoms. You know, whatever it is, it's the amount of people that actually act on said violence out of 350 million people is relatively small, right? We're really talking about maybe hundreds of individual instances as opposed to the over 350 million people. Most people don't act on violence, but that's kind of how stochastic terrorism works, is that you have enough people that end up acting on it if they receive enough of the hate rhetoric that results in the terroristic actions. You will find, I don't know a single left-wing source that says for left-wingers to act on it. Me, myself, I argue on the basis of total passivism, as in you do not act on with aggression at all, unless you have absolutely no other choice. Like, you basically need to be in a corner. There's no way that you can run. That's why I don't even consider the situation with you said it earlier, Kyle Rittenhouse, as being politically motivated. I don't believe that was politically motivated, and I saw that he actively avoided trying to commit a violent act, and so I agree with him getting off scot-free, because I watched the footage. I saw the entire information. Again, I'm not stuck in left-wing atmosphere. What I'm interested in, what are the facts? The facts show that the right wing is more prevalent in terms of violent extremism than on the left. That's true.
All right, so I believe that the patterns of the right or the left are more prevalent whenever it comes to their control over the mainstream media and their stochastic terrorism, calling people Nazis and fascists. What are you going to do whenever you believe that fascist has a hold of your country? You don't fight fascists with a vote, right?
Fascism already has a hold on our country.
Exactly. And it's words like that that move people to extremism, because you don't fight fascists with votes.
What? Yeah, you can.
I feel like that. I feel like that's far more.
You can.
No,
You
if
can.
it was true fascists, no.
And the fact that Donald Trump's I mean, the only way that,
this is
that
far
any
more
amount of
inflaming
violent
rhetoric
action is going to even
the
happen is
fascism
if
and the
Donald Trump
Nazism
is able to is able to circumvent the electoral process. That would probably be the only instance but I don't even see that happening. I think that the
why do you even
midterms
say
are going to
that
come
fascism
around,
has-
and I just want to let you know, the Republicans are going to get crushed. It is going to be a freaking bloodbath in terms of voting towards the Republicans. They are going to lose this. And
then that's
if
good for
nothing,
our
if
cities,
nothing
right?
is
At least
changed
they won't
after
get
those
burned
2
down.
years, then the Republicans are going to lose again. I don't know who they're going to run. Maybe JD Vance, the couch fucker.
Yeah, Just Dance Vance, number 48, baby.
Yeah. Good luck.
But no,
All right, so
like
I'm
I was
looking at your
saying-
source, right?
Yeah.
I want to share it for the class because this is fabulous, right? This is like a classic instance of just bad epistemology. Here, I'll show you right here. All right. Let me go ahead and show my Chrome. And my Chrome. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. So it says here, do you think it is ever justified for citizens to resort to violence in order to achieve political goals? And it says here, politics. Okay. So there is Democrats, 14% saying violence can sometimes be justified, 13 saying independence. And then among Republicans, it says 6% cannot be, can it be justified, in 81%. So here's your problem with your argument. Okay, number one, regardless of whatever this is, this doesn't actually refute my statistics that the actual violent statistics regarding right-wing versus left-wing violence, it is
But you
overwhelmingly on the right. That's
You
number one.
You haven't
The
been
next
able to
thing
name a case that wasn't
you have
before
to ask yourself,
2017.
do
bud.
you think that it is ever justified for citizens to resort to violence in order to achieve political goals? I could see an example where a Democrat is sitting there thinking, okay, I'm living in Nazi world where the oppressive establishment is so bad that violence is justified. I could even argue in that favor. That, however, does not mean, therefore, we act on violence on the basis of a political goal. So, number one, I get that this is a great survey, but it doesn't actually address the actual criminology statistics. Do you understand?
You can't even provide an example that doesn't come before 2017.
I already did.
No, you have not.
I did. I listed multiple sources. There was a 2020 source. There was a 2024 source. There was a 2022 source. I provided stats.
Who was the 2024 source?
And the 2024 source. Oh, that was the Glenn Whitman one. What?
So,
let's see here. Hold on. Where the hell? Fucking. Oh, sorry. It was 2022. This was the foiled attack of Governor Gretchen Whitmer. There were individuals plotting to attack FBI offices and officers in 2022. There was. Yes, it was.
He wasn't
also, the
right-wing,
January
though,
6th Capitol attack in 2021. The Buffalo supermarket shooting in 2022. The El Paso Walmart shooting in 2019. The Pittsburgh synagogue shooting in 2018. Like, again, this is able to be found. And also, bringing up individual case scenarios is just a rhetorical ploy. It doesn't actually address the relevant criminology statistics.
I've already addressed the relevant criminology.
Yeah, you said it's biased, which is not an answer.
The methodology is flawed.
By the way, 0 studies. None. You provided
the methodology
a single
of
questionnaire.
It doesn't matter when the methodology
a single
of
questionnaire
your studies are
surveyed
flawed.
of 2,600
The left
US
has been
adults
violent
asking
since its
them a
inception
question.
in the French Revolution. They've always killed millions more than the right have killed. The only time that the right fought was to gain territory.
That is one of the
because they
dumbest
were being
arguments I've ever heard.
overtaken
Bringing up
in,
the 1800s
Crusades.
French Revolution as
You're the one who
left
brought up
versus
the
right.
Crusades.
I
brought
didn't
up
bring up the
Crusades.
Crusades. You
It
brought
was
up
way
old
earlier.
ass
It was a
shit,
callback.
and I'm not bringing up the Crusades as an argument. You're the one bringing up
No, yeah,
France in the 1800s. You idiot.
and communism, I'm bringing up the 1900s as well, because I'm saying that the left is
I
inherently
don't argue in favor of
violent,
communism.
and they've
Neither do
been
most
violent.
Democrats. Democrats,
matter.
left wingers in the
It doesn't
United
matter
States
if you
don't
do
even
it,
know
it's
what
the left.
communism
I'm saying that
is.
the left is
Let
inherently
me ask you this,
more
right? I
violent.
answered this question. Now it's your turn to answer it, right? I'm curious if you paid attention. What is communism?
Communism is a classless, stateless society. Whenever they
One more. Come on, you're so close.
classless, stateless society.
One more. Come on. No. Oh my God, he's so
The
close.
government takes control of all the means of production.
Classless. No. Again,
Yeah.
you said stateless, right? So there wouldn't be a state where the government controls everything.
think
That's
there
what
is,
communism.
yeah.
So it's a classless,
You think so.
stateless, moneyless society. But you'll notice I don't argue in favor of communism.
I don't
Nor do
care.
I argue in favor of socialism.
Is communism on the left?
I'm not is communism on the left? Yes. But it's a good thing that
so
communism
it's
doesn't
part
even
of this-
exist in the United States. Like it's not really a formal party, and neither is socialism
Yeah,
for that
the reason
matter.
I was bringing
it's
up the
completely
history is to-
non-existent,
is to
right?
bring up
So
the
talking about
historical
socialism or
violence of the
communism
left,
and the death of socialism and
You
communism
act
is
like you
completely
can't even
irrelevant.
understand.
Do I say what? The deaths, the millions of deaths that happened under capitalism, is that the right? Is the right capitalism?
No, it wasn't just under. It wasn't just people got sick and
Okay,
they died.
well, there's
It
been tons
was
of
a
imperialism from the
political
right.
violence
Do we argue
happened
that?
through
Or do
wars
we
and
actually
famines
argue
and-
relevant
and-
United States statistics?
The United States isn't right. It's classic liberal.
The United States is what's right wing to you?
What are you talking about?
Is it like Christo-fascism? Is that the right?
No, we live in a democracy now. It's classical liberal. We go off of John Locke classical liberal principles.
I agree with you.
Which is further left than.
But
where
last
the
time I
middle is
checked,
now.
there is like the emphasis on the individual, and then there's the emphasis on the collective. When you have an emphasis on the collective, it tends to be more left wing. If you're on the right, you have an emphasis on the individual. That's the difference between left and right.
Yeah, and the left likes private ownership.
No, that would be if you're saying like socialists or communists, that means it's the workers' ownership of the means of production. I don't argue that. I argue a private ownership of the means of production, which is capitalism. And then you have social safety nets to ensure that people who are poor, destitute, or unable to work, that they don't live destitute lives.
Which is more social, but they allow people to have a say in their government, which is far more left-leaning.
Than most of the United States. I agree with you, but that's beside the point. The right does commit more violent acts in the United States. That's true.
Because your study says so, but like I said,
my study, the multitudes of studies with meta-analyses from multiple universities as well as criminology research centers. That's what you're up against.
But you can't even name.
I already did, and that's also irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant at all.
Yes, it is.
You have to be able to, whenever we can name.
I'm bringing up thousands of data points, and your argument is name a single data point.
So I can bring up thousands and thousands of data points too. If I look up a meta-analysis of the violent right.
Yeah, so look up a meta-analysis. Look up what the actual studies say.
And it doesn't even matter because we see it with our own eyes. We're not seeing right-wing violence every day.
There it is, see?
I'm looking it up right now. What are you talking about, brother?
All right. Again, if I bring up to you, right, if you drove down a road and there was 100,000 flat tires as a result of this road in the year, which is higher than most other roads, but you drove down that road and did not get a flat tire, then what you're doing is that you're using your personal anecdote to invalidate the thing that is empirically happening. So just because you haven't experienced it or that you didn't
not
see
saying
it
that I
doesn't
haven't
mean that the
experienced
data
it.
isn't there and it is not relevant. There are tons of very violent right-wingers. You even argued that with the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys.
I'm not saying that there's not tons of that there aren't tons of violent right wingers. Just like you can't say that there aren't tons of violent left wingers.
I'm not arguing that there aren't violent left-wingers. There are. What I'm saying is that the right is much more prevalent in their violence, which would make sense. They tend to own more guns. Let me ask you this, right? Do you find it
Prevalent? What does prevalent mean?
Have you ever heard the
used our
argument
guns?
that if
People.
there was a civil war between the left and the right would win because the right has more guns? Have you heard that argument before?
Yes, that's exactly why we're not
Okay,
more
so
prevalent
you
to violence.
can't have
or we
your
would've
cake and
already
eat
been
it
out
too,
there.
because if the right would win if there was a civil war, then wouldn't that make the right more violent?
Wouldn't the left already be dead? With all
That's
the
it.
violence,
I just won the debate. That was it. He just proved to me that
no, with all the violence that we have in the streets, you can't say that the right is more violent because there's been.
Holy shit. Wouldn't you all be dead? Dude, you just did it.
How did I do it? I'm saying if it was a civil war and
I'm
the right
clipping
wanted
that,
to act
baby.
with violence and
I
we
am
have
clipping that.
prevalence
That
to
was a
commit
wild
violence,
thing to say, considering that you say that the right is less violent, but you
I'm
just
saying if
made
we
a
were-
violent
if we were
argument just
more-
now.
if we
I
were
love
more-
it.
That wasn't the violent
Incredible.
argument, bro. You're strawman like a motherfucker, bro. I'm saying
Dude,
if the
you
right
sit there.
wasn't
Dude,
more
that was equivocal
have to
to
listen,
that
bro.
if you were
You
a
have to
vegan, that you're eating the biggest ribeye steak I have ever seen in my life.
You don't understand, bro. You said we were more prevalent to violence.
You're right. I don't
I said,
understand.
if
You're
we
gonna
were
have to
more
help me
prevalent-
out. I'm
I
stuck
said-
in like logic and reality world,
Well,
and
if
you're
you
stuck
fucking
in.
listen, I
Well,
can
then the left would already be dead.
Let Fredo get his point out.
You said if we were more prevalent to violence. I said if we were more prevalent to violence, wouldn't you already be dead? With given all the violence we've seen come from the left, with hundreds of thousands of y'all running through the streets.
Well, what do you know? That already happens, and the data points
When?
show exactly that. Again,
It
you
would
can't
be
have
all
your
over the
cake and eat
news.
it too. When you
Doesn't
have
matter
when
what your
you
data
believe
points
that if there were a civil war between the left and the right, that the right would win, obviously the right is more violent. That's how that logically works. See how that works?
Look,
Because you
we
got
were
more guns, because you have more capability to commit violent acts. And then
If
when
you've
you
been
observe
committing-
relevant
listen,
criminology
listen,
statistics,
if you've been-
that
if
they
you've been
actually
committing-
do commit the
Shut fuck
violence.
up, bro. Jesus Christ, do you ever shut up?
No,
If y'all were committing
I love
violent acts in the
dunking on
street,
right
and y'all
wingers
just
like you,
going and
bro.
going and
It's
going,
really fun for me.
and we were more violent, wouldn't we already enact violence on you?
Holy shit.
Wouldn't violence
They
be
already
enacted
do.
a long time ago?
I showed you relevant
Data point.
statistics
When
where
is the
that's
last
in
time
fact the
any-
case. Stop bringing up single data points. It's so tiring.
I'm not bringing up single data
You
points.
asked
can
for a
bring me any
specific data point, and I gave you specific data
With all
point, but
these-
that's
with
not
all
enough.
these riots
The
going on and all
stats
these cameras going on through
disagree
the
with
streets, you don't
you.
think that anybody's
The
going to be able
stats
to
disagree
report
with you,
right-wing
Fredo.
violence? We would have brought
You're wrong
right-wing
about
violence a long
this.
time ago, but you can't bring up a single point because
I
there
already
isn't.
did.
Y'all bring up violence.
I
y'all
already
you're harming
did.
our officers day after day after day. And it's
Oh
still
my
going
God.
on, by the way. And it hasn't stopped for over 100+ days.
Yeah. Look at you. I don't know. I don't know what I'll be honest with you. SpeakeaZy. I don't know what else to say to this guy. I don't think he actually has a falsification principle. I don't think there's like a way for me to like. There's no study that I could present to him.
I don't know
where
where
he
we're
would
going.
say, "Oh, you're
let's-
right." First
Let's
Amendment.
see, maybe then if we could do this. We're in the last 6 minutes here. Why don't you guys steel man each other's argument?
Yeah. Well, he's asking. He thinks that because I can't name a single point, even though I did multiple times throughout this debate, he thinks that all of a sudden the stats go away. He also was referencing that that the studies are biased. But I didn't reference one study. I referenced a multitude of study. In fact, asking a very open-ended question towards a consensus AI app to just find out, hey, what's now if it showed, studies show that a majority of left-wing violence is caused, we would be in agreement. We wouldn't even be having this discussion at all. But the fact is the studies do not argue in his favor. And from a Steel Manning point, I think he has a right-wing bias where he's just stuck. And any facts that prove him otherwise is just rendered null and void and therefore biased. And that's all he has. He doesn't even have an argument, unfortunately. I can't even steel man his argument because he has no argument.
All right, Fredo, why don't you steel man his?
So, basically, I was gonna fuck with you, but no. So basically, he has these studies from criminologists, and he has this meta-analysis, and his data points point to a certain thing, and is irrefutable evidence because his opposition does not have data points and studies and sources to bring up to show him.
Yeah.
At least I could still man you graciously.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the left versus the right violence, are we talking about, are we comparing institutional force versus street level unrest? And like, does that change the conclusion?
I mean, it's going to depend on what particular study you look at. No matter what study you look at, it is overwhelming that it is the right. We would have to look at the individual studies and what their definition of political violence would be. I would imagine it is likely to do with, from what I've seen from most of the studies, it was basically just politically motivated acts of violence resulting in the harm of individuals. I would not probably even consider that, say, for example, BLM riots overwhelmingly was property damage, albeit that there were deaths, and that would be counted as a part of left-wing violence. I think like wrecking a business,
but
I don't know if I
wasn't.
would call that like politically motivated violence. I'm not sure if I would do that. Maybe the studies did do that though.
You wouldn't include vandalism in politically
No,
motivated
because like
violence?
because when you're talking about like a violence, like from a legal sense, what it's referring to is like the harm of an individual. It's kind of like, and I brought this up earlier. I don't think like the death of Charlie Kirk is equivocal to, I don't know, breaking a window. You know, I don't think that these are the same data point. I would definitely.
You want to clip me, but that's an extremely violent statement.
What?
Oh, never mind. I thought you said it would be equivocal.
No, I say it would not be. Yeah, it would. It
No,
would not
yeah,
be
I get it,
equivocal
yeah.
at all. Obvious. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, right? I'm very much on the left. I'm a super wokey liberal, you know, and I argue very progressivist ideals. I'm a certified soy boy. I really am, and I'd be glad to tell you that. Did Charlie Kirk deserve to die? Absolutely not. I agree he was a hateful person. I didn't think he was a good guy at all, but that doesn't mean that, you know, he deserved to die. If that's me at least reaching out with an olive branch.
So are we not adding institutional violence like state action?
Like I said, I would have to pull up the individual study to provide that information.
You'd have to have a study to
again, I'm looking at
include what
meta-analyses, and I'm looking at
political
a
violence.
collection of over 20 sources that culminate in that the right overwhelmingly causes more violence.
So in order for it to be defined politically motivated violence, it would have to be in a study for you?
I think I'm not a criminologist, nor would I claim to have any expertise in criminology. What I would reference is relevant authoritative bodies that do the studying for me, and then I change my opinion on the basis of what scientists that are relevant in that field have studied. I think that's much more intellectually honest. And like I said, if the study said that left-wing violence is more prevalent, then I would just agree with that.
So only case by case if it is institutionalized. So if the institution harmed an innocent person.
I don't understand that question. Can you rephrase it?
Like if our government's policies harmed an innocent person,
No,
innocent human being.
That wouldn't be politically motivated.
Like if it just in aims of their political motivations, but we have 10 seconds. Don't even answer that. It's too long of a line anyways.
All right. Looks like you guys are both good there. We'll wrap up the hour of open floor. With that being said, we're going to move it into the closing statements here. So, First Amender, you had opening first, so you'll also get closing first. That'll give Fredo the last word. So whenever you're ready for your closing statement, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Okay, so I'm going to just fly this off the seat of my cuff. If I apologize, I did not write something out. But basically how this whole this whole debate went is that I spent the time to research the data, to understand what it had said. And the best that I could find against my favor was that recent DOJ findings saying that the right has basically committed almost zero violence in 2025 by White House statistics. That was the closest thing that I could find. I find that very fishy, considering that is the lowest, that the number that was given is the lowest number ever reported in the past 31 years. I couldn't find earlier statistics than that. It's just that's where the data stopped, 31 years. And considering the fact, I started wondering, okay, well then why is that the case? And other criminologists agree that they believe that the data has not been adequately rendered or researched because the Trump administration is actively trying to suppress that data. That's for that year. But from 2020 to 2024, post-COVID era, indeed, the right has had much more violence than on the left, even if you include BLM protesters. And so when I present relevant statistics, the only rebuttal that I get is, well, do you know a single instance? It's not really relevant. It's not really addressing the just mountain of data that is readily available. And so it is also just obfuscating the point. The data is against you here. Regardless of how you feel about it, you have to acknowledge, if you are interested in the truth and you want to know the truth, that you change your perspective and realize that, okay, maybe there is more right-wing violence. I think if you want to have less violence overall, being aware of what the reality is and what are the underlying motivating factors is how we can live a more just and peaceful world. And that's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement. And with that, sorry, we're going to hand the mic over to Fredo. And Fredo, whenever you're ready for your closing statement, I will start the timer up with your voice.
All right. I don't have anything written up either. I do not believe that the right does as much political violence as the left. We can see all the violence that the left has explicitly covered up right before our eyes, and it in the studies I've read, admittedly, it may have not been the same studies he presented, but I know some of them have gone into the meta-analysis. Those numbers were skewed due to bias and due to categorization and problems with the methodology. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that he can't name a single recent right-wing piece of violence, no matter if he wants to take that as evidence or not. And if it's true that Republican right-wing violence has been 0%, which I too agree that that's probably pretty fishy. But if that's true, that pertains to the categorization of his current state of being, the left is more violent than the right now. So with that, I'll end my time.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement, Fredo. And if you've enjoyed what you've seen tonight, make sure you subscribe to the SpeakeaZy show so you don't miss more debates just like this one, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays.